We're in the Florida Keys, and we're going after spiny lobster.
That's right. On this episode of Captain's Tales, we're in search of the mouth-watering, feisty crustacean, the Florida lobster.
Let's go in and get them.
We hope to get our legal limit and have a great time snorkeling and diving in the beautiful Florida Keys. Throughout maritime history, there have been experts on the water who knew how to navigate and locate their bounty. These individuals held the secrets to where, when, and how. This still holds true today. Get ready for an angling experience filled with sea secrets, fantastic fishing, and great destinations. For on this show, it's only the captain and the camera. On this trip, we're leaving out of Marathon, Florida with Captain Chris Emerine and father-in-law Jerry Wynn. From their home in Marathon, Jerry and Captain Chris have marked and located hundreds of lobster spots over the years. Every year, Floridians migrate to the Florida Keys for the opening of the lobster season.
You got 150 feet. It's going to come up on this side.
Jerry's technique for locating his lobster spots is by the use of saved GPS numbers and a tossed buoy. The buoy allows Captain Chris to jump in, relocate, mark, and check the spot for lobster.
Hopefully we put him right on the hole. If not, he'll just have to swim around a while.
According to Florida regulations, the spiny lobster can only be taken from natural habitat and not man-made structure. All potential legal lobster must be measured in the water before bringing into the boat. If they do not legally measure, they must be released alive back into the water.
Now this here is a perfect specimen of a beautiful Florida lobster. This guy was hanging out underneath a ledge. Just barely can see their antennas sticking out. All you're going to be able to see is about that much of that lobster. You'll just see two antennas kind of flapping in the wind. You got to go down there with your tickle stick and you got to tap them real lightly on the tail. And they walk forward just a little bit, and the second they get out of that hole, they try to shoot in the other direction. And so you have to bring your net, and you have to basically have that net back toward its tail, which of course, you know, you see him coming forward, and of course you're thinking, well, he'll hit his antennas on that net, and it'll spook him, and he'll just shoot right in the other direction. And that's exactly what most of them do. You'll have a couple that get a little squirrely and shoot all around the net, and you'll wind up losing them, but 99.9% of them like to shoot backwards, and that's how they can escape. Because what happens is they open up this tail right here and they use it as a giant fin, and they'll shoot this thing like this backward, and they go so fast you couldn't kick hard enough to catch up with them. So anyway, there's a beautiful Florida lobster. Let's go in and get them.
Captain Chris knows gentle tickling is the best technique to sort through and move the smaller lobster out of the way to get at the larger ones without disrupting a group. This selective style of sorting keeps the group from spooking and leaving the structure, which can spread them into the seagrass, where the lobster are more camouflaged and difficult to visualize and catch. Every year, Floridians migrate to the Florida Keys for the opening of the lobster season. The pre-opening is called the Sport Dive and always is the last consecutive Wednesday and Thursday of July. The regular lobster season opens from August 6th through March 31st.
That's how we do that. Whew. Man, he's just barely a keeper, but he's good. Barely saw the tips of his antennas sticking out. Went down there, got him first try. Can't beat that. You know, this is a sight that you don't see every day, and just so happens that we happen to have the camera on the boat. Never seen this before. I've been lobstering for 10 years. This lobster seems to have the horns fused together. And if you look over here, the normal lobster has his horns, you know, separate like that. That's how a normal lobster looks. And we've never seen this before. It's kind of hard to see which one, if he's a keeper or not, because of the horns being fused together, but he is. Very cool. What you need first before you ever go lobstering or even jump in the water is you have to go down to your local fishing shop and you have to purchase a Florida license, fishing license, and actually have a crayfish permit on it. Before you ever even jump in the water or anything like that, you have to have that. Then after that, you also have to go down to the local tackle shops and you have to buy a pair of gloves, you have to buy a net, you have to buy a tickle stick. Now when selecting gloves for lobstering, you have to remember lobster have a lot of little spines all over them and they poke in to your hands and everything. You can't use bare hands at all. These gloves right here are okay. The reason I'm not real crazy about these is they're just made of a cloth and the little spines and stuff will actually poke through the little tiny holes on these gloves. I really like the rubber coated gloves. These offer you a lot more protection. You don't feel the little things poking your hands. Sometimes, I mean, you know, they'll cut through, you'll start bleeding and everything. So these are the gloves I really like when you're lobstering. This is the kind of tickle stick I like. It's a metal tickle stick. It's got a little bit of curved end right here. The curved end is for turning the lobster and actually poking them from behind. They make plastic ones that are straight. They work, but they're a little bit harder to use in my opinion, a little bit harder to dig into the hole after them. This tickle stick also has attached to it a measuring stick. The measuring device you have to have in the water. If the Florida wildlife comes up on you and you don't have a measuring device in the water, they will give you a ticket. An important thing to remember when you're tickling lobster out of a hole is you don't want to this is called a tickle stick for a reason. It's because you tickle the lobster out. You just very lightly tap them and get them to move out of the hole. If you put the tickle stick in and start beating it around like it's some kind of whisk or something like that, basically the lobster are gonna freak out, and a lot of times what you'll see is they'll all escape in what we call a train, and they'll all just literally like buddy up, and they'll just keep on doing a little dance out of the hole. I'm gonna show you guys how to clean a lobster. The best way is just take one hand, grab onto the hard shell, take the other hand, grab onto the tail, and you're gonna twist. Now there's gonna be a lot of juice that squirts out of this thing. And there's all the meat. Now there's a lot of meat still left inside the head. Some people like to cut this thing open and get every scrap of meat, but most of your meat is right here. The next thing you wanna do is you wanna snap off an antenna off of the lobster's head. Now, the reason for that is you take one antenna and you're actually clearing the vein that's in the actual tail. It's basically where all the entrails and everything are. We got our limit of 18 lobster today. Go to the FWC site and check out what the rules and regulations are for your area. I just jumped down on a hole that we call the Dana hole, and it is absolutely packed with lobster. It's about 15 feet deep, very little clarity. So what we're gonna do is John's gonna jump in with the tank. We'll see how we do. Ready to go.
When diving deeper, lobster spots are more accessible with scuba tanks. The compressed air tanks allow John time on the bottom to patiently and methodically work crevices and holes to tickle out the larger lobsters. John raises his net to signal Captain Chris that a lobster has been caught, and to swim down with an empty net and bring the measured legal lobster up to the boat. This relay technique is advantageous when there are lobsters free walking out of the holes. If the diver is trying to stuff them in a bag on the bottom instead of using a relay net, the lobsters can spook in all directions and out of reach. This also allows the diver to keep his eyes on the bottom and the lobster.
That's what we're looking for. Good sized lobster. He's a good 5/8 of an inch over. In the well.
It is a very effective way to catch lobster, especially with strong tidal currents and deep structure.
Nice lobster. Good size. That's a keeper. He's in the box. It's a good hole. There might be 3 of them on this hole. According to my divers, they're all in. They tell me there's 3 or at least 2 more besides this one. Let's put a measure on him. See how much over he is. He's like the last couple we've picked up today. Really nice big lobster.
The current prescribed bag limit and additional information on lobster harvesting can be found on the Florida www.myfwc.com website.
Excellent. Another nice lobster coming up. Now we always have the diver measure in the water, and then when we get them back on the boat, we measure again before we put them in the box. We don't want any lobster in here that's not legal lobster. So in case the diver happens to get hold of the eye section and think that he's got a full-size lobster, he might not. So you want to double check it, get it back on the boat. As soon as it comes on the boat, you want to double check it and make sure that he's a big, well oversized, past the 3-inch carpus. And that's another one for the box.
The other one wasn't, no.
That's good. That's a good lobster there.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
In the tank.
One more in the tank.
With our limit met, we head home for the traditional lobster dinner celebration. Jerry Wynn has an easy recipe for preparing and grilling lobster.
My favorite way of doing lobster on the barbecue grill is to take regular kitchen shears and split open the back of the shell of our lobster. As soon as you split the shell open, it allows you to lift the meat directly out of the shell. Then we can fold the shell back up, lay the meat right on top of the shell. Now what the shell does, it holds it up off of the foil and allows the heat underneath to keep from burning it. We don't overcook the lobster. It has all the space under it. It helps to steam the lobster. It helps to cook it like an oven would cook, but you're doing all this on the barbecue grill, and it makes it a very simple way to prepare the lobster. Tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to have our lobster with filet mignon. We're going to have mushrooms on the side. We'll pour those over the filet. We'll have mashed potatoes, a little fresh warm butter with some hot sauce in it. My favorite is to use Frank's hot sauce in the butter, 3, 4, 5 drops of that, or as hot as you want it. It really makes a difference in the butter and the lobster taste. Ready to eat? We're done. Let's eat. Steak, mashed potatoes, and lobster. You can't get much better than that.
Try one more fishing spot online. Log on to www.captainstales.com. Closed captioning brought to you by Moonlighter Push Poles and Nets. Join us again next week for another episode of Captain's Tales, and try one more fishing spot online. Log on to www.captainstales.com.